All right, people. So we were doing animal classification, and in animal classification, we were particularly doing sponges. Okay, so we were left with a certain part of sponges out here, and we will try and finish this off today itself, so that we can start with the other kingdoms out here. Okay, so let's start with sponges. We have done some characteristics of sponges like osculum, ostium, etc. And now we will draw about, or rather we will study about what is their canal systems. What is a canal system? This system consists of pores and canals. So we know that the kingdom itself is Porifera, so it means that it is made up of pores. So this system basically consists of pores and canals. Three types of canal systems are found in sponges. One is known as the ascenoid canal system. It is the simplest type, which is found in Leucoselenia and few other sponges. So it is found in Leucoselenia and few other sponges. This is known as ascenoid canal system. Okay, this is the simplest type of canal system which can be found, and it is known as Leucoselenia and a few other sponges. Syconoid canal system, it is more complex than the ascon type. Syconoid canal system is more complex than the ascenoid type, and it is found in Psychoi and some other sponges, and that's the reason the name is Syconoid. So in sponges like Psychoi and it is found in Psychoi and some other sponges, this is found. Leuconoid canal system, it is the most complex canal system which is found in Spongilla and some other sponges. So there are three canal systems in sponges: asconoid, okay, then we have Syconoid, and then we have Leuconoid. Why are we concerned about canal systems? Because that's the only medium of transport in Porifera or sponges. Okay, so asconoid is the simplest one, then we have Syconoid, which is a little more complex than asconoid, and then we have Leuconoid, which is the most complex of all, found in Spongilla. Okay, now in class Demospongiae, the Leuconoid condition is derived from a larval stage called the rhagon. So from the larval stage itself, this condition is derived. The canal system of rhagon larva does not occur in any adult sponge. So it doesn't occur in any kind of adult sponge. Because of this derivation from rhagon stage in Demospongiae, the Leucon type of canal system is also called the rhagon type. So this is only found in Demospongiae, and that too it develops from the larval stage, and hence it is known as the rhagon type. Okay, we will move on from the canal system to other characteristic features. So just remember, in sponges there are three types of canal system: asconoid, leuconoid, and we have asconoid, leuconoid, and Syconoid. Asconoid most simplest, Syconoid a little more complex, and Leuconoid the most complex. We have to remember basically their examples as well. In Demospongiae, the Leuconoid develops at the larval stage from a larval stage called the rhagon. So this is basically known as the rhagon type. So in Demospongiae we can also call them as a rhagon type. The central body cavity, now we are talking about basically the coelom. The central body cavity of the sponge is called the spongiocele or paragastric cavity. So this is known as the spongiocele or the paragastric cavity. Cavity we all know basically is the coelom. The continuous water current flowing through the canal system is very important for the life of a sponge. That's the only medium of transport in a sponge. So it's extremely important that the entire body structure, the entire body system of sponges favors this continuous flow of water. Otherwise it will not be able to sustain its life in the marine conditions. The continuous water current flowing through the canal system is very important for the life of a sponge, and hence we were particularly studying about the three canal systems which are prevalent in Porifera or sponges. Okay, it brings in food and oxygen and carries away carbon dioxide. So ingestion happens and excretion happens by the medium of water only. Okay, excretory matter and carbon dioxide, excretory matter and reproductive bodies. Thus the canal system helps the sponge in nutrition, respiration, excretion and reproduction. The entire life process of a sponge is basically carried out by its canal system, and hence it's very important that every sponge has an effective canal system. If the canal system is impacted in a sponge, it will be difficult for the sponge to sustain its life. Okay, so it brings in food and oxygen, so basically and carries away carbon dioxide, excretion, excretory matter and reproductive bodies. Okay, so reproduction also happens through this canal system. Now skeleton, let's look at this part. Let me just check whether this is visible. Okay, no issues. So skeleton, almost all sponges possess an internal skeleton. So all the sponges will basically have an internal skeleton. Okay, it may consist of calcareous, means made up of calcium, or siliceous spicules made up of silicon. Okay, calcareous or siliceous spicules, so we have thorn like structures. So these are basically the spicules that we have discussed in an earlier slide as well. Siliceous spicules, or of fine spongin fibers, or of both. So there might be spongin fibers, there might be spicules as well. So spongin fibers, if you look into this, they also, these are spongin fibers. So these are basically the spongin fibers, and these are the spicules. They might be calcareous, or they might be made up of, they might be siliceous. So they might be made up of calcium, or they might be made up of silicon. Okay. So skeleton is made up of spicules. Spicules might be calcareous or siliceous, and they are made up of also spongin fibers. So maybe only spicules are present in a particular species, maybe only spongin fibers are present, and maybe both are present as well. So that is how it is. So I'm sorry. So both are located in the mesophyll layer. Both are liquid in the mesohyl layer. How does digestion take place? It is intracellular, which means that it happens within the cell and takes place inside food vacuoles as it happens in protozoans. So there is a similarity between sponges and protozoans. Just as in protozoans, intracellular digestion takes place in food vacuoles as in protozoans. Okay, so digestion is intracellular, which means it happens within the cell. Circulation. Now we'll talk about circulation. Distribution of food. So what is basically circulation? This is distribution of food from the ingesting cells to others is brought about by wandering amoebocytes of mesohyl layer. Now amoebocytes are not amoeba. Okay, they are basically food distributors. So distribution of food from the ingesting cells, the food which is getting ingested, and again here water is the medium which is helping. Let me just check. Okay, it is visible. Okay, ingesting cells, and is brought about by wandering amoebocytes of the mesohyl layer. So wandering amoebocytes of mesohyl layer basically bring in this. Okay, respiration, exchange of gases. The exchange of gases occurs by diffusion through the plasma membrane of the cells as in protozoans. So a lot of similarity with protozoans. The exchange of gases happens to the plasma membrane, that is the external membrane of a cell, of the cells, as it happens in protozoans. So that is how the respiration happens, and that is how the circulation happens. We are not here to study in deep about these processes. We are just trying to understand in terms of animal classification what criteria have been considered to classify and the entire diverse group of animals. So we are just kind of touch basing with the basic processes in life and how they are particularly specialized in a particular organism. So that's what we are trying to understand here. Okay. So excretion, again we know that water is the main medium out here, both for ingestion and excretion. Removal of excretory matter also occurs by diffusion through the plasma membranes of the cells as it happens in protozoans. So it happens to the plasma membranes of the cells as it happens in protozoans. Ammonia is the chief excretory waste. Again, recall we had at the start of the chapter classified animals on the basis of their excretion processes as ammonotelic, ureotelic and uricotelic. So ammonotelic are basically animals which have a lot of water surrounding them, and it is affordable for them to lose water in the form of ammonia, and sponges happen to be one of them. We have studied that sponges are mainly marine, so it is affordable for them to lose their excretory waste in form of ammonia. So they can be classified as ammonotelic elements. Removal of excretory matter also occurs by diffusion through the plasma membranes. So plasma membranes diffuses of the cells as it happens in protozoans. Ammonia is the chief excretory waste. Reproduction, both asexual and sexual reproduction occurs in sponges. So they are able to do both sexual as well as asexual kind of reproduction. Asexual reproduction occurs by budding and gamules. So gamule formation happens or budding formation happens in case of sponges. Okay, so these are the basic life processes of sponges which we are trying to touch base with. Okay, Then in fresh water and a few marine sponges, gammules of internal buds are formed. So these are basically gammules. This is basically a gammule of internal buds are spawned. Sponges are hermaphrodite, which means that they have both the sex organs, both male and female sex organs within the same body. Okay, in fresh water and a few marine sponges, gammules or internal buds are formed. So these are basically gammules or internal buds which are formed. Sponges are hermaphrodite, having both the sexes. Fertilization here is internal. So fertilization, it means that the fusion of the male and female gametes is internal. Unlike many animals wherein fertilization is external, especially the ones which stay in an aquatic medium where water is the chief source of reproduction, here the fertilization will be internal. Now development, now when we talk about fertilization, obviously we will have to talk about the zygote formation, where the development takes place. Zygote undergoes holoblastic cleavage. Now what is holoblastic cleavage? Complete division of the zygote. So the zygote keeps on dividing. That is called holoblastic cleavage. The development includes a free swimming larva. So this is a free swimming larva. The amphibastula in Cycon or parenchymula in Leucoselenia for dispersal of the species. So Cycon, Leucoselenia, and so these are basically the three canal systems which we have studied. Okay, we have basically Cycon and Leucoselenia as a separate canal system. So the development includes a free swimming larva, the amphibastula in Cycon. The free swimming larva will actually happen in the first species of canal system. Okay, and then we have the Cycon or the parenchymula, that is Leucoselenia, for dispersal of the species. So the dispersal of the species happens that way. Okay. I'm so sorry people, I got a call, an emergent call. Okay, so in fresh water and a few marine sponges, gammules or internal buds are formed. So we have seen the formation of gammules or internal buds in fresh water and a few sponges. Fertilization is internal. So we have seen this, the development. Zygote undergoes holoblastic cleavage, that is complete division of the zygote wherever and whichever canal it is happening. Now we have seen the three canals out here. Okay, so in Cycon and in Leucoselenia, okay, it includes a free swimming larva and the amphibastula and parenchymula for dispersal of the species. So that's how and we have seen that water plays a very important part in the reproduction process. Okay, what are the unique features? As we have studied earlier as well, all sponges have the ostia and the osculum. So ostia and oscula are present, basically the inlet and outlet of water through their bodies. Presence of canal system, we have seen three types of canal systems are present, and the skeleton is made up of spicules and spongin fibers. So we have basically spicules which are thorny and spongin fibers, and these might be made up of only calcareous or siliceous tissues, that is calcium and silicon. Choanocytes, we have seen what are choanocytes as well. So these are the unique features of sponges. Mostly the questions that are asked are on unique features, so we need to make a special note of these things: ostia, osculum, inlet and outlet of water, presence of the three canal systems, skeleton is made up of spicules and spongin fibers, and choanocytes. Okay, classification, chiefly how the classification has been done, or how have they been included in the main group. Chiefly on the basis of skeleton, phylum Porifera is divided into three classes. What are the three classes? Class 1, that is Calcaria. This is only on the basis of the skeleton. As we have seen, spicules and spongin fibers are present, and they can be either calcareous or they can be either siliceous. The skeleton is calcareous spicules. Calcareous spicules means made up of calcium. Examples are Leucoselenia and Cycon. Okay, so these two canal systems, Leucoselenia and Cycon, they will have calcareous spicules which is made up of calcium. Okay, let's move on to the other one. So the class 2 of Poriferan kingdom or sponges kingdom is Hexacynellida. So hexa means 6. The skeleton is made up of siliceous spicules. So the first one was calcareous, and this one is basically siliceous, which is made up of silicon, which have 6 rays. Examples: Eupilectella and Hyalonema. Okay, so Hyalonema and Eupilectella are basically the examples of 6 spicules. Okay, now then we have Demosponge. Okay, Demosponge is what? Demosponge frame, that is the skeleton is made up of spongin fibers or spongin fibers with siliceous spicules, or may be absent. Okay, so demospongia, we know that in the larval stage itself the spicules develop. The skeleton is made up of spongin fibers or of spongin fibers with siliceous spicules or may be absent. Okay, examples: Euspongia, Spongilla, Cleona and Shalina. Okay, so these are basically the examples. Leucoselenia, it is the simplest colonial sponge. Colonial sponge means that they prefer to stay in colonies consisting of a number of horizontal and vertical tubes. So the number of horizontal as well as vertical tubules. The development is in a larva, the parenchyma. So development is with a larva. There is a larval development. The entire species develops from a larva. And the larva is basically parenchyma. Cycon, the development is with a larva, the amphibastula, as we have seen. Okay, the amphibastula. Epacletella, the Venus flower basket. It is also known as the Venus flower basket. The skeleton is basically, this is interesting. It was a costly marriage gift in Japan, as it is thought to be a symbol of union of wife and husband. So it was previously used as a costly marriage gift. Okay, and this is basically Hyalonema, the glass rope sponge. Okay, the glass rope sponge, Hyalonema, is fixed in the mud by a root tuft of long twisted spicules. It is fixed in the mud. The upper surface has the gastral cone, which bears the opening of excurrent canals. Excurrent, which is basically exhaling. Okay, the middle part of the root tuft commonly bears several polyps of symbiotic anemones of the genus Ephizoxanthanus and Polythova, which shows symbiotic relationship. So they basically have a symbiotic relationship, which means that both of them mutually benefit from each other. Okay. All right. So we have Euspongia, that is Spongia. This is also known as the bath sponge. The sponges that we use today are basically sponges which are synthetically prepared or man-made. But there was a time when we used to use basically natural sponges. So these were known as bath sponges, and this was a big industry. Okay, the surface is raised into a small projections called the connules. Depressions between the connules bear small pores. The dermal ostia, the oscula, are numerous. So they have numerous oscules. So the entire body is like holes. Okay, its skeleton is used for bathing, washing automobiles, cleaning furniture and window panes. So it is still used. Okay, but today we have many synthetic sponges available. It is used for applying cosmetics, mopping, etc., for cleaning purposes, for applying mop and cosmetic purposes as well. Spongilla, which is freshwater sponge. Spongilla is a common, widely distributed freshwater sponge. Shows various shades of green color because of the symbiotic algae present inside. So we showed various shades of green color, and this is basically Spongilla. As I said, freshwater species of sponges are very less, okay, as compared to the abundance of availability in marine water. The freshwater sponges are relatively less. Okay. Alright, so these are basically the Leucoselenia. This is how the Leucoselenia will look. This is how the Cycon will look. Then we have Spongilla. Then we have Hyalonema. Then we have the dried skeleton. Then we have the Euspongia. So this more or less completes the entire section of sponges. Okay. We will try and cover the remaining part. So stay tuned. Alright people, so we are now bringing into you the third or almost the third video of animal classification. The topic is very descriptive, and as I said, we will have to learn a lot of things. In this learning process, we will be learning a lot of processes as well, which will be discussed in details for human beings and for other animals as well. So as and when we go by in your entire syllabus of CBSE, you will see when we are discussing respiration, we will touch base with certain animals considering the evolutionary aspects of respiration. Similarly, it happens with reproduction. So all these are basically life processes. But fundamentally, when we are just studying animal classification, we need to know certain unique characteristics which are there in certain phylums, and we need to understand how they correspond and how they basically alter the different aspects of the life processes in special organisms. So we are done with the phylum of Porifera. We will now be studying primarily Cnidarians. Okay, so phylum Colentrata, which is also known as Cnidaria. Cnidarians are poisonous. Most of them are poisonous, and in their self-defense or while catching prey, either in offense or in defense, they will release certain poisonous substances. Okay. If you recall, there was this famous biologist, or rather we can say environmentalist, or we can say a researcher who basically got killed by a cnidarian in the sea. Okay, that is a jellyfish. Basically, you got killed by the sting of a jellyfish. Okay, so this can basically prove very dangerous because obviously they are poisonous. Okay, now phylum Colintrata or Cnidaria, the scientists who were associated with the discovery, so it was Parsonel in 1723 and Tremblay in 1744 who proved that cnidarians are animals. So comparing their different biological processes, these two scientists actually proved that they should be included in the group of animals. Leucart used the term Colintrata. So we either call them as Colintrata or we can also call them as cnidarians. Hatschek in 1888 used the term cnidaria. So Hatschek in 1888 used the term cnidaria. Okay, so let's look at the general characteristics that we have. So when we refer to their habitat, mostly all of them are aquatic. All cnidarians are basically aquatic and most of them are marine, except a few like Hydra, which are freshwater. Hydra are found in freshwater habitat and most of them are marine. They are carnivorous. As I said, they have this poisonous sting which they use in order to catch their prey. So obviously they would be carnivorous. Sessile, sometimes they are basically bound like plants and sometimes they are free swimming as well, just as we have jellyfish. Okay. Body form and symmetry. So when we talk about body form, colintrates are radially symmetrical animals. So these are radially symmetrical animals. Body form varies considerably. Most colonial cnidarians like Obelia and are trimorphic. So they have trimorphic, having three kinds of zooids, that is polyps, blastostyles and medusae. So we will understand what is the difference between polyps and medusae as well. Okay. Occurrence of more than one type of individuals in their colonies performing different functions is called polymorphism. So there is more than one type of individual in their colonies when they exist in colonies, and occurrence of more than one type of individuals in their colonies performing different types of functions is known as polymorphism. Okay, so we'll try and understand more about this. So this is basically the side view of a medusa. You have the gonads there, which are basically the sex organs. Exambular surface, this is the position of radial canal. Submedullary surface, then we have gonad and the radial canal. This is basically tentacles. So we have basically tentacles out there. Most of them will have tentacles. Whenever you remember cnidarians, you can recall how a jellyfish basically looks like. Okay, the name cnidaria is derived from cnidoblasts or cnidocytes. So cnidoblasts and cnidocytes, what are they? Which contain stinging capsule. So this will contain poisonous substances. Stinging capsule or nematocyst. So they will have a stinging capsule or nematocyst present on the tentacles. So on the tentacles we have stinging capsules present. Cnidoblasts are used for anchorage. So what are the functions? It is just not stinging or releasing poisonous material into their prey or in defense or in offense. Okay, it is used for anchorage, to fix, defense and the capture of prey, which means offense. Okay, cnidarians exhibit what level of organization? They are basically, the level of organization is tissue level. They have reached the tissue level. So from the cellular level we have moved on to the tissue level, and are diploblastic. So they will have basically ectoderm and endoderm. So they are diploblastic. So this is the picture that we have in NCERT book for cnidarians. Okay, this is basically operculum, cnidocyl thread, nematocyst, that is the stinging capsule, supporting fibrils, undischarged position. This is basically the undischarged position. Okay, germ layers, cnidarians are diploblastic as we discussed. So they are derived only from two embryonic germ layers, which are the ectoderm and the endoderm. So these are the only two germ layers that we have in cnidarians, the ectoderm and the endoderm. Body wall, the body wall consists of two layers of cells, which is basically the outer epidermis and the inner gastrodermis. So they have an outer epidermis and the inner gastrodermis. There is non-cellular gelatinous layer called mesoglea. We have seen that wherever we have basically diploblastic animals, we generally have the mesoglea part. Okay, that is basically performing indirectly the function of mesoderm. Mesoglea between the epidermis and the gastrodermis. So between the epidermis, that is the external layer, and the internal layer gastrodermis, we have the mesophyll. Okay, epidermis. The epidermis consists of the following cells. One, we have epitheliomuscular cells. They provide protection and act as muscles. So they will basically provide protection and they will act as muscles as well. Cnidoblast, these are stinging cells. They sting. Name of the phylum Cnidaria is due to the presence of these cells. A cnidoblast, also called nematoblast, has nematocyst, that is a stinging organ. This is basically a stinging organ. The nematocyst consists of capsule, shaft and thread tube. So all these are basically there. It consists of a capsule, it consists of a shaft and a thread tube as well. The nematocysts are used for defense as well as offense. So we have seen this, and they basically contain poisonous materials which they inject into the prey in order to defend themselves or to offend. Okay, interstitial cells are there. They are reserve cells and are called totipotent cells, which can be converted into any types of cells. So totipotent cells are basically cells which can be interconverted into any type of cell as and when required. Okay, then we have nerve cells. They have the primitive nervous system, a very old and non-evolutionary form of nervous system. Sensory cells, they are sensory in functions. Obviously their function is to be as good as sensory organs. So these are cnidoblasts. Okay, if you look into it, this is basically the nucleus. Cnidoblast, one position, this is the undischarged position and this is the discharged position. Okay, so this is the undischarged position of what? Nematocyst. This is the discharged position of nematocyst. Okay, so when they have discharged what is there in order to defend or offense, this would be the position. Okay, all right, so here we can differences between nematoblast and nematocyst. Okay, so what is nematoblast? It is present in the epidermis. Nematoblast. What is nematocyst? Structure present inside the nematoblast. So this is the structure which is present inside the nematoblast. Nematoblast is also known as the stinging cell. Okay, and here nematocyst is known as the stinging organ. Okay, made up of cell membrane, which is also known as cytoplasm. That is basically made up of capsule, shaft and thread like tube used for defense as well as offense. Okay, made up of cell membrane and cytoplasm and nucleus, nematocyst, etc. These are the basic parts of it. Okay, all right, what do we mean by gastrodermis? As we saw, gastrodermis is the internal layer, epidermis is the external layer in cnidoblast. So the gastrodermis comprises of nutritive, muscular or digestive cells. So intracellular digestion takes place inside these cells. They also act as muscles. So they will also act as muscles. Gland cells are there. They secrete digestive enzymes for extracellular digestion. So both types of digestions are taking place. These gland cells, they secrete certain digestive enzymes which are necessary for extracellular digestion. Then we have, of course, the interstitial cells. We have nerve cells and of course the sensory cells. Okay, functions of the interstitial cells, nerve cells and sensory cells are similar to those found in the epidermis. So epidermis is where these are functionable. Okay, gastrovascular cavity. Cnidarians have a central gastrovascular cavity, coelenteron, with a mouth or hypostome. Okay, this is also known, the gastrovascular cavity is also known as coelenteron and it has a mouth or a hypostome. Digestion. So as we saw, both intracellular and extracellular digestions are present. Okay, respiration and excretion. How are these processes carried out? Are carried out through the body surface by diffusion. Okay, ammonia is the chief excretory waste. Since all of them are aquatic, whether they are marine or whether they are fresh water, as we have in case of hydra, since they are aquatic, they are in an enough amount of surrounding water and they can basically be aminotelic. They can release, they can prefer, or they have the advantage of being surrounded with enough of water, so they can release the waste in the form of ammonia. So they are known as aminotelic. Primitive nervous system. A primitive form of nervous system is found in these animals. So they basically will have a very primitive form of nervous system which has not evolved in the due course of time. Okay, it consists of a network of nerve cells and their processes. Statocyst is a sense organs for balance, which is first time developed in Cnidaria. So statocyst in nerve cells has developed in order to give them the balance which is required. So they can stop, they can move, they can stop, they can move, they can balance themselves. Okay, and statocyst has first developed in Cnidarians. This is the first development of the nerve cell and this starts from Cnidarians. Okay, nervous system is diffuse type and consists of known as polar apolar neuron. So this will basically consist of a apolar neuron. Skeleton, some coelenterates like corals have skeleton composed of calcium carbonate. So calcareous calcium carbonate is there. So these are basically coelenterates like corals have skeleton, and we know corals are very famous along the great Australian, we have the Great Barrier Reef, and in India, in Lakshadweep Islands also we have the coral reefs present, and it is a huge tourist attraction. Okay, so some coelenterates like corals have a skeleton. So what we see in corals is basically the skeleton part. Okay, different colored skeleton parts. Okay, reproduction is both asexual in terms of budding and sexual. Both gonads and buds arise from interstitial cells. So asexual reproduction takes place by budding, and in sexual reproduction gonads are involved. Okay, so gonads are involved. So power of regeneration is also developed. Development, the cleavage is holoblastic. Direct or indirect development is found. In Obelia planula, larva is present. So in Obelia planula, the larva is present. However, in Aurelia planula, Scyphostoma and Ephraia larvae are found. So these are basically the in Aurelia planula, Scyphostoma and Ephraia larvae are found. So these are basically the larvae which are found. Metagenesis in Obelia, which is a form or a species of cnidarians, polyps produce medusae asexually and medusa forms the polyps sexually. So there is an interconversion. This is a unique feature of cnidarians which you got to remember. First is excretion of poisonous substances for defense and offense, and the second one is this, wherein the polyps produce medusae asexually and medusae produce the polyps sexually. Since they are capable of both sexual and asexual reproduction, since there is a process of both gonads and buds which are present in them, buds will take care of the asexual reproduction that will happen from polyps to medusae, and gonads will take care of sexual reproduction which will happen from the conversion of medusae to polyps. Such alteration of sexual and asexual phases in life cycle or Obelia is called metagenesis. So wherever you get this term metagenesis, it means that both sexual and asexual reproduction can simultaneously take place, and interconversion can also happen. So from medusae to polyps is basically a mode of asexual reproduction, and from polyps to medusae it is basically sexual. From medusae to polyps it is sexual. Metagenesis, polyps reproduce medusae, polyps to medusae asexual, medusae to polyp sexual. Okay, so this is called metagenesis. It should not be confused with alteration of generations. So we have basically alteration of generations in plants. It's a specific topic in plant kingdom, so this should not be confused with that process. Okay, one phase is haploid and the other is diploid. Here both the phases are diploid. So in both the phases, so in basically it should not be in alteration of generations in plants. The difference is that one phase is haploid and the other phase is diploid. Here both the phases are diploid. So let's understand this. Metagenesis means interconversion. Interconversion means it makes the organism both sexually reproductive and asexually reproductive. So from polyps to medusae the process is asexual. From medusae to polyps it is basically sexual. Okay, so that is called metagenesis. In alteration of generations that we see in plants, one species is haploid and the other one is diploid, but here both of them are diploid. So that is the reason, or that is the main difference between metagenesis and alteration of generations in plants. So these are small objective questions which you might encounter, that what is basically the difference between alteration of generations in plants and in basically cnidarians or coelenterata. So polyps to medusae is asexual and medusae to polyps is sexual. So they have both buds as well as gonads for asexual and sexual reproduction. Okay, it should not be confused. Unique feature, presence of cnidoblast. As I said, this is one unique feature, cnidoblast for defense and offense. The other unique feature that you have to remember is statocyst, which is developed in cnidarians in the nerve cells, is the first evolutionary aspect, okay, which helps the body balancing part. Okay, so network of nerve cells acting as primitive nervous system. So this is the most oldest form of nervous system, and it has already developed statocyst, which basically allows the cnidarians to balance themselves. Okay, so as and when we go on reading this, so the questions generally are formed on the special or unique features. So obviously they have the nidoblast for defense and offense, and they will have a primitive form of nervous system which has statocyst for their body balancing, and they have the capability of producing or reproducing both sexually and asexually. Okay, so sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction happens because birds and gonads both are present. So medusae getting converted, so polyps getting converted to medusae is asexual, and medusae converted to polyps is basically sexual. Okay, now colintrates exhibit two basic body forms, that is they are called dimorphic, called polyps and medusa. As we saw, colintrates, this is very unique feature. So colintrates or cnidarians will basically exhibit two type of body forms. One is called the polyp and the other one is called the medusa, and interconversion will continuously keep on happening, and that is referred to as metagenesis, different from the one that happens in the alteration of generations in plants, where one is haploid and the other one is diploid. Here in this case both will be diploid. Okay. So here we have polyp. This is cylindrical in shape like hydra, adamsia, etc. Medusa, umbrella shape like Aurelia or jellyfish. So medusa form is represented by Aurelia or jellyfish, and it is umbrella like, and this is cylindrical shape like hydra. So we have seen hydra like this, growing like this, it's like a cylinder. Adamsia, and here we have basically this part with tentacles all around, and this is umbrella shaped or Aurelia. Mostly sessile, they can be fixed, but sometimes motile, and sometimes they can move as well. They are free swimming. We know hydra is mostly sessile, they are free swimming. Jellyfish is free swimming, maybe solitary or colonial. They can exist only as one solitary unit, or they may be colonial as well. They are always solitary because they are free swimming, so they are not dependent and can catch hold of their prey as and when they get it. So they are always solitary. Okay, mouth and tentacles are directed upward. Here the mouth and tentacles are directed downward. So if you see a hydra, it will have its tentacles branching out like this. They are directed upwards. And if you see a jellyfish, the tentacles are directed downwards. Okay, this is basically a sexual form, and this is basically sexual form. So polyp undergoes transition to medusa, and that will be basically asexual. Okay, and this undergoing this one will be asexual. Okay, so we have seen the interconversions that are happening. So this is basically colintrata. So this is basically adamsia, which is an example of polyp, and Aurelia, which is basically an example of medusa. Okay, so if you see the tentacles are, this is mostly sessile, and this is mostly free living and free swimming as well. You see the tentacles moving downwards, you see the tentacles moving upwards. Okay, this is the NCERT book. Okay, classification chiefly on the basis of dominance of medusoid or polypoid phase in life cycle. The phylum Cnidaria is divided into three classes. So how are we dividing Cnidaria? We are dividing Cnidaria into three classes. The first class is hydrozoa. Hydro of course means water, zoon means animal. Either only polyps are found, or polyps and medusa are present. So here it will only be polyps, or polyps and medusa both are present. Examples: Hydrelia, Obelia, Seafer, Physalia, Millipora. All these are basically different types of hydrozoan animals. Then we have Aurelia, which is jellyfish, okay, which is basically a medusa form. Anthozoa means anthos flower. They are represented by the polyp form. So polyp form is there, which is medusa form is absent. Example: Gorgonia, Adamsia, Alcyonium, dead man's finger. This is also known as dead man's finger. Fungia, there is mushroom collar, Penatula, Corallium, red coral, Astrea, Meandrina, okay, Madrepora, that is staghorn coral, Tubipora, organ pipe coral. So these are different types of corals that we have, and corals are a major tourist attraction. Okay, Hydra is a freshwater colintrate, and it is carnivorous. Okay, Hydra has great power of regeneration, which was discovered by Tremblay. So you cut an Hydra, it will again regenerate, and that's how they reproduce basically. Both bisexual and unisexual hydras are found. Okay, a unicellular green algae Zoochlorella lives in nutritive muscular cells of Hydra vescendrima. So Zoochlorella, this is basically an algae which lives there, and here both will benefit from each other. The Hydra will benefit from Zoochlorella, and the Zoochlorella will also benefit from the Hydra. It is a type of algae basically, and since it is capable of manufacturing its own food, it is green color, and hence the hydra which gets formed here is known as green hydra. The algae utilizes metabolic waste of host cells like carbon dioxide, water, etc. for photosynthesis. So the algae which is basically present on the hydra, that is on the green hydra, will utilize the metabolic waste like water. We know that everything is in the form of water, the entire circulatory system, okay, in hydra. So they will utilize the metabolic waste of host cells like carbon dioxide and water for photosynthesis. The host hydra is benefited by utilizing oxygen which is released in photosynthesis by the alga. So this type of is known as basically symbiosis. Both the organisms are mutually benefiting from each other. Such association with which both the organisms are mutually benefited is known as symbiosis. Now Hydra oligatrix, this is also known as brown hydra, Hydra vulgaris, colorless hydra, and Hydra gigantica, that is pinkish white hydra, are some other species. Okay, so whenever we have the case of green hydra, you have to understand that on the surface of hydra the green algae Zoochlorella are present, and both of them are mutually benefiting from each other. Zoochlorella will utilize the waste from hydra for photosynthesis, and the food which is manufactured will be used by hydra for their own growth and development. Okay, Obelia, the sea fur, it is also known as a sea fur. Obelia is polymorphic. The three types of individuals are polyps, blastostyles, and medusae. So all these three are present, blastostyles and medusae. So that is the reason they are known as polymorphic. They can exist in all three forms. The polyps are mainly nutritive in function, while the blastocytes give rise to reproductive individuals, and the medusa by budding. See, we know that medusa will basically reproduce by asexual reproduction. Polyps will reproduce by sexual reproduction. Okay, so the polyps are mainly nutritive in function, while blastocytes give rise to reproductive individuals, the medusa by budding. The medusae contain gonads for sexual reproduction. Obelia basically is carnivorous. Obelia shows metagenesis. So obviously, since all of them are present, that is medusa, blastocytes, and polyps, so this will show metagenesis, that is conversion, interconversion will happen. Okay. Physalia, the Portuguese man of war, this is also known as Portuguese man of war, a gas gland present inside the pneumatophore secretes a gas which helps the animal to float over the water surface. So you know, if you fill up a balloon with gas, it will float above the water surface. In the same way, this is able to float above the water surface. Physalia exhibits a remarkable example of polymorphism and division of labor. Just below the pneumatophore are hanging down the three types of zooids and tentacles. That is, dactyli zooidae serve in catching the food and also the organs of defense. Gastrozoids are nutritive zooids, and gonozoids are reproductive zooids. So gastrozoids are basically dactylozoids serve in catching the food. So they are basically the organs of defense. Gastrozoids, obviously the nutritive zooids, and gonozoids, that is derived from gonads, are reproductive zooids. The poison of dactylozoids is neurotoxic, which is very harmful. It attacks the nervous system. That's the reason it is neurotoxic and is very harmful. It generally floats on the sea surface, and everyone should be avoiding it. Okay. Aurelia, the jellyfish. The body of Aurelia is somewhat similar to that of the medusa of Obelia. So Obelia can exist in all three forms, that is polyps, medusa, as well as blastocysts. So there it is Obelia. It has a similarity with that of Obelia. They are present 4 large tapering oral arms. Aurelia generally is unisexual, bearing 4 gonads, that is ovaries and testes in the subumbrellus side. Okay. We have Adamsia, the sea anemone. Adamsia is found attached to the empty shell of gastropod mollusk, that is occupied by hermit crab, that is genus Eupragrans. It shows communalism. Now what is basically commensalism? The association between Adamsia palatia and Eupagrus pyridaxtri, that is hermit crab, is a classical example of commensalism. So commensalism is a relationship between two living individuals of different species in which one is benefited while the other is neither harmed nor benefited. See, symbiosis and communalism are commensalism. Okay, commensalism and symbiosis are two different processes. Symbiosis is a process in which both the organisms involved are mutually benefiting from each other. Commensalism is a process in which one gets the benefit, the other is neither harmed or the harm is very less. Okay, so neither harmed or benefited except to a very negligible extent. Adamsia is transported from one place to other by hermit crab, which lives inside the cell. So hermit crab basically lives inside the cell, and this combination between Adamsia and hermit crab basically is that of commensalism. Okay, so now we have Meandra sinosa, the brain coral. Meandra bears on its surface long winding valleys separated by ridges. The valleys are occupied by compound polyps which are formed from the ordinary polyps. The surface of the colony is marked by convulsions. There are fissures out there and are found in human brain. So just as a human brain reflects, and that's the reason we call this as a brain coral. It is very similar to that of the human brain. That is why Meandra sinosa is also called the brain coral. Okay, Pennatula, the sea pen or sea feather. The sea pen looks like a quill, that is a type of a feather. Pennatula is carnivorous and phosphorescent. The colony is dimorphic, that is two types of zooids are present. Scyphozooids found on the sides of rashes and the dorsal side cause circulation of water in the canal colony. So this will basically cause the circulation. And autozoids are nutritive in function and a single row of each penule. So they are basically two types of zooids. What are they? Siphonozoids and autozoids. Siphonozoids will help in the circulation of water, and autozoids are nutritive in function and lie in a single row on each penule. Okay, so this is what we have. This is the hydra, which is mostly sessile. Then we have the Adamsia. Then commensalism between sea anemone and hermit crab. So this is basically the hermit crab and the sea anemone. The hermit crab generally benefits, and at times it helps in the locomotion. Okay, this is Aurelia or the jellyfish. This is Meandra or Meandra sinosa or the brain coral. So the convulsions look like it is very similar to that of a human brain. This is Gorgonia. Okay, then we have Pennatula, then we have this is Obelia, and this is basically Physalia. So this pretty much is about the cnidarians or the colintrates. Please go through the points here. It is a little descriptive chapter, and we need to be very careful when we are studying animal kingdom about the special or the unique features that are there. So in Cnidoblasts, if you see, we have the nematocytes or cnidoblasts, and these are poisonous in nature. They have polymorphic body system. All these are special features that we need to remember and understand. Polyps to medusa and medusa to polyp will happen sexually and asexually production. So there are both birds and gonads which are present, which will cause this interconversion. Okay.